Your next argument is things began to exist. And it could have been a natural beginning or a supernatural beginning, and it can't cause itself to exist. Well, this is not necessarily true. An interesting thing about our universe is a flat universe. And what that means is that all the energy and matter are synonymous essentially, E equals mc squared, but all the matter and the energy in the universe is exactly balanced out by gravity. So if gravity is a negative energy, so if you add those two together, you get exactly zero. So the net energy in the universe is exactly zero. So that's, now that may be, okay, whatever, who cares? That's crucial because with something with net energy zero, it can cause itself to exist. And this is true because of this. There are things called quantum fluctuations, essentially, or it involves Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, but things can come into existence out of nothing. This is shown with Hawking radiation and other forms of quantum fluctuations. So how this happens is it borrows energy, essentially. It creates energy, but then it dissipates after, it's like 10 to the negative 43 seconds. So it's an extremely small amount of time, because it had to borrow energy. But with the universe having zero total energy, it doesn't have to borrow any energy to bring itself into existence, because it has zero total energy. So essentially, it can borrow zero energy, bring itself into existence, for an unlimited amount of time, because it doesn't need to return any energy, because it didn't borrow any energy. So that's what's very important about the universe having zero total energy. It can bring itself into existence. And a theoretical physicist, Lawrence Krauss, did an amazing lecture regarding this. I will link that below too. If you really want to learn about this, I suggest you watch it. It's really good. So there we have, the universe can bring itself into existence. But again, if we ignore everything I just told you, the proof that you just gave only proves the deist God. It proves no specific God at all. So, for all you know, Zeus could be the real God, and you go into Hades. So let's see your next argument. I wrote these down. Ooh, this one's fun. You talk about absolute morals. So, this is the only philosophical point I actually like, because I'm really not into philosophy. Oh, absolute morals. You claim they exist. First of all, you provide no warrants. You just say, some things are always bad. Okay, you haven't given an example, but that is not true at all. So, take murder, for example. You may think murder is bad. I may think murder is bad. Joe Schmo down the street may think murder is bad. But that does not necessarily mean Bob thinks murder is bad. So, anyone can think murder is bad, and others can think not. So take the actions of the 9/11 hijackers, for example. Pretty much everyone in the U.S. thinks, oh, those actions are bad. But they saw their actions as being just. They saw their actions as being moral. This just proves that there is no absolute morality. I dare you, give me one example of absolute morality. Just one. One example where something is universally bad or universally good. Just do it. Okay? Because if you can, I will take back my point about there being no absolute morals. If you can successfully give me one, I mean, of course, I will probably try to disprove what you said, because most likely it'll be incorrect, because there are no absolute morals. So this argument doesn't work. But again, if we shove aside everything I said, everything at all, and we assume that there are absolute morals, this doesn't prove the Christian God. It only proves a lawgiver, a God. So again, you still haven't proven the Christian God at all, nor have you proven any God, but let's continue. Oh, this one's fun. This one is the historicity of Jesus. So, I've written an extensive post regarding the historicity of Jesus, which I will link below too as well. So, I would say it's unlikely that Jesus existed, for a number of reasons I've outlined in the post, but for this example, we'll assume he did exist, okay? The people that you mentioned like Tacitus and Suetonius and Pliny the Younger, those people didn't live with Jesus, okay? Those are historians that came after him. and I will provide their birth dates and little annotations too. But what they say, if you actually read the writings where they supposedly mention Jesus, and of course, most of them are either forgeries or interpolations, which I talk about in my post, which I suggest you read if you really actually want to learn about this. But they don't even mention Jesus' divinity. They just say they talk about he was called the Christ, or there was a dude named Jesus chilling. So all this proves that there was a man named Jesus. It doesn't prove his divinity. It doesn't prove he was the Son of God. It doesn't prove anything about your religion. So the only thing you rest on now, the only thing you have left to prove that you were correct, is the eyewitness accounts. And those just do not work, solely for this reason. I believe that the number was 914. There were 914 people at Jonestown who all hallucinated and all assumed and all thought that they would have to kill themselves and to go up to heaven. And I think it was the UFO, whatever they were talking about. And they drank the poisoned Kool-Aid with cyanide. 914 people. It was either that or 814. Either way, that is greater than your 500 people that were eyewitnesses. And people hallucinate all the time. And so there's the mass hallucination theory. So there's they believed, you said there were enemies among people that didn't believe, but that still doesn't take apart the hallucination aspect of it. And then you go on to talk about the empty tomb, which really doesn't prove anything, because it's perfectly plausible that somebody could remove the body from the tomb, and you just said, it was an empty tomb, whatever. You provide no warrants as to why that proves anything, just that there was an empty tomb. And even that is not historically verifiable. So, entirely regardless of that, you have not proven anything of any sort. I've disproven everything you said. And so then let's continue about the burden of proof. So I'm going to quickly then jump back to touching on what the burden of proof is. The burden of proof is essentially who has the burden to prove X is right or X is wrong. So what you have the burden of proof, and I will tell you why. You are the one making a claim. So if I were to claim that there was a teapot orbiting the sun between the Earth and Mars, it would be my burden to prove that that teapot existed. I could say, disprove that teapot to me, and you wouldn't be able to as long as I said that it's too small to be detected by any telescope, which is essentially what you are claiming, that God's outside of time and space. So, it's not your burden to disprove that the teapot doesn't exist, to prove that the teapot doesn't exist. That's not your burden to prove. It's my burden to prove that it does exist. And it's the exact same thing with you and God. It is your burden to prove that God doesn't exist. You have attempted to do so, and might I add, you have failed. Hopefully you respond to this. If not, whatever. But just for making this video. So, have a nice life.